The first thing Emily noticed wasn't the address, it was the time. 2:43 a.m. Her husband's Uber history had always been boring. Airport trips, office meetings, grocery runs, the occasional late-night ride home after dinner with coworkers. Predictable, ordinary, safe. But this ride, it had started at 2:43 in the morning. She stared at the screen for several seconds, convinced she was reading it wrong. The pickup location wasn't their house. The destination wasn't his office. It wasn't anywhere she recognized. Her thumb hovered over the map. She didn't tap it, not yet. Something inside her was already whispering an answer she wasn't ready to hear, and that frightened her more than the ride itself. 3 hours earlier, Emily hadn't been looking for secrets. She was 36 years old, a freelance graphic designer who worked mostly from home. Organized to the point that her friends teased her about labeling storage boxes nobody else would ever open. She liked routines because routines made life feel dependable. Her husband, Daniel, was the opposite. 39, a successful project manager, brilliant with people, terrible with details. He forgot birthdays, lost his keys twice a month, left cabinet doors open, and never remembered to sign out of shared apps. It had become a running joke in their marriage. "If I ever become a criminal," he'd laugh, "I'll be caught because I forgot to log out." Emily would roll her eyes. "You'd probably leave fingerprints and your driver's license." He'd grin. "And you'd still bail me out." She always smiled, because she believed she knew exactly who he was, or at least she thought she did. They had been married for 11 years. No children, not because they didn't want them, but because life had kept postponing the conversation until it quietly disappeared. Instead, they had a golden retriever named Oliver, Sunday breakfasts together, movie nights every Friday, and enough shared habits that silence between them never felt uncomfortable. It wasn't a perfect marriage. Daniel worked too much. Emily worried too much. He avoided difficult conversations. She replayed every disagreement in her head for days. Neither flaw seemed dangerous, until now. That afternoon, Emily had ordered lunch using their shared Uber account. Daniel had connected both their phones years ago because it made business expense reports easier. Neither of them had ever bothered changing it. She finished placing the food order. The confirmation appeared. Below it, recent trips. She almost ignored them. Almost. Then she saw the timestamp, 2:43 a.m. Daniel had told her he stayed overnight at the office, finishing an emergency presentation. She remembered the conversation perfectly. "Don't wait up," he'd said over the phone. "I'll probably sleep in the conference room." She even joked, "At least those chairs look expensive." He laughed, "I'll survive." But conference rooms didn't require Uber rides. Emily opened the trip details. Pickup, Riverside Business Hotel. Destination, Maple Street. She frowned. Maple Street wasn't familiar. She zoomed into the map. A quiet residential neighborhood. No restaurants, no office buildings, just houses. One house. The route ended in front of one specific address. Her stomach tightened. She quickly locked the phone and placed it face down on the kitchen counter. "No," she whispered, "this isn't enough." She hated people who jumped to conclusions. Her own father had accused her mother of cheating because she'd received flowers without a card. The flowers had come from Emily. A birthday surprise. Her parents divorced anyway. The accusation left a scar that never healed. Emily had promised herself she would never become someone who assumed the worst. She took a deep breath. There had to be another explanation. A client, a coworker, someone stranded, a mistake, right? Oliver walked into the kitchen carrying his favorite tennis ball. She threw it down the hallway. He chased it happily. She wished solving marriage problems were that simple. By 6 o'clock, Daniel came home looking exhausted. His tie hung loosely around his neck. His eyes looked red. "You okay?" Emily asked. Long day. He kissed her forehead. He smelled like coffee and rain. Not perfume, not alcohol, nothing suspicious, just Daniel. Presentation go well? He hesitated, only for half a second. Yeah, they loved it. Emily noticed the pause. She hated that she noticed it. Dinner was unusually quiet. Daniel kept checking his phone, not constantly, just enough. Every few minutes it lit up. He glanced, turned it over, continued eating. Emily counted 6 times. She'd never counted before. Why was she counting now? So, she asked casually, did you actually sleep at the office? Daniel reached for his glass of water. Mostly. Mostly? I couldn't really sleep. So where were you? Another tiny pause. I grabbed coffee around 3. Emily smiled politely. That late? You know me. I wasn't going to fall asleep anyway. It sounded believable. Almost. Except the Uber ride hadn't gone to a coffee shop. It had gone to a house. She wanted to ask. She wanted to place the phone on the table. She wanted to say, "Who's living on Maple Street?" Instead, she asked, "Did you drive?" "No. I took an Uber." Her heart skipped. At least he admitted that. But then, why hide the destination? She looked at him carefully. His expression remained calm. Too calm. Or was she imagining it? After dinner, Daniel volunteered to wash the dishes. That almost never happened. Emily leaned against the doorway. "You don't have to." "I know. I want to." His voice sounded softer than usual, almost guilty, or simply tired. She couldn't tell anymore. The problem with suspicion, she realized, was that once it entered the room, everything changed shape. Kindness became guilt. Silence became lies. Fatigue became evidence. By 10 o'clock, Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch while watching television. Emily watched him for a long time. His breathing was slow, peaceful. This was the man who cried when Oliver needed surgery. The man who drove 4 hours to help her brother move apartments. The man who still warmed her side of the bed with a heating pad when she worked late. Could that same man be living a second life? Or was she destroying the first one with her imagination? She quietly picked up his phone from the coffee table. She already knew the passcode, their anniversary. It had never changed. She wasn't proud of what she was doing, but she couldn't stop. Messages, nothing unusual. Photos, normal. Email, work, calendar, meetings. No hidden apps, no suspicious contacts. Nothing. She almost laughed at herself. "See, you're paranoid." She put the phone back exactly where she'd found it. Then she remembered something. The Uber app. Not on his phone, on hers. Still logged into the shared account. She opened it again. This time she tapped the ride. The route expanded. A larger map appeared. Below it was a tiny detail she hadn't noticed before. There had been a stop, just 2 minutes long, before arriving at the house. The stop wasn't a coffee shop. It wasn't a gas station. It wasn't even on the main road. It was directly outside. St. Anne's Children's Hospital. Emily froze. Everything she had believed over the last 6 hours suddenly cracked apart. Why would Daniel lie about stopping at a children's hospital in the middle of the night? And why would he go from there to a stranger's house? Emily barely slept. She lay awake beside Daniel, listening to the rhythm of his breathing while her own thoughts refused to slow down. St. Anne's Children's Hospital. The name kept replaying in her mind. If Daniel were having an affair, why would he stop there? If he weren't having an affair, then why lie? Neither answer made sense. At 6 a.m, Daniel's alarm buzzed. He reached over without opening his eyes and silenced it. "You've been awake?" he asked quietly. "For a while." "You okay?" Emily almost laughed. The irony was painful. "I didn't sleep well." "Me neither." He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his face with both hands. For a brief moment, she saw something she hadn't noticed before. He looked defeated. Not guilty, not nervous, just exhausted. It almost made her feel sorry for him. Almost. After Daniel left for work, Emily opened the Uber app again. She zoomed in on the address on Maple Street. No business, no apartment complex, just a modest 2-story house with a white fence. She copied the address into a search engine. Nothing. No business registration, no vacation rental, no public records that meant anything. Just another house. She told herself to stop, close the laptop, forget the whole thing. Instead, she grabbed her car keys. "I'm just driving by," she whispered. Nothing more. She wasn't proud of it, but curiosity had already become stronger than reason. Maple Street looked exactly like the map suggested. Quiet. Children's bicycles on front lawns, freshly cut grass, neighbors watering flowers. The kind of neighborhood where everyone waved at strangers. Emily parked across the street. The white house looked ordinary, too ordinary. Curtains drawn, a blue pickup truck in the driveway, a small swing hanging from an old oak tree. No expensive cars, no obvious signs of secret romance. She waited. 5 minutes, 10, 20, nothing. Then the front door opened. A woman stepped outside, mid-30s, brown hair tied into a loose ponytail, jeans, gray sweater, no makeup. She carried 2 grocery bags toward the porch. Emily frowned. She wasn't what she'd imagined. No glamorous mistress, no mysterious beauty, just someone. The woman struggled with one of the bags. An older man from next door walked over. "Need a hand, Claire?" Claire smiled gratefully. "Thanks, George." Emily lowered her window slightly. The neighborhood was quiet enough to hear pieces of their conversation. "Your brother coming today?" George asked. Claire hesitated. "I don't think so." "That's a shame. He was here pretty late the other night." Emily's pulse quickened. The other night. George continued casually. "I saw that black SUV again." Claire forced a smile. "Yeah. Hope everything works out." Emily's hands tightened around the steering wheel. Black SUV. Daniel drove a black SUV. Her mouth suddenly felt dry. She waited another half hour. Nothing happened. Finally, she drove home. The entire ride, she repeated George's words. He was here pretty late. Maybe there wasn't another explanation after all. Maybe she had simply refused to see it. That evening, Daniel arrived later than usual. He looked distracted. "Sorry," he said. "Traffic." Emily nodded. "Lunch?" "I already ate." Another lie? Or another coincidence? She couldn't tell anymore. During dinner, his phone buzzed. For the first time, he didn't flip it over. Instead, he grabbed it instantly. Emily caught only a glimpse of the screen. Unknown number. Daniel declined the call immediately. "You didn't answer?" "Spam." "So late?" "They're getting creative." He smiled. It looked forced. Later that night, Emily couldn't resist. While Daniel showered, she checked the shared phone bill online. No unknown number. No repeated calls. Nothing. She almost felt relieved, until she remembered. Internet calls, messaging apps, burner phones. The internet had taught people too many ways to hide. And once suspicion found a home in someone's mind, it learned how to decorate every room. The next afternoon, Emily made a decision she never imagined herself making. She knocked on Claire's door. The woman answered almost immediately. Up close, she looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. Her smile seemed genuine. "Can I help you?" Emily's rehearsed speech disappeared. She improvised. "Hi, I'm looking for someone who used to live nearby." Claire frowned politely. "I've only been here about 6 months." "Oh, I'm sorry." "No worries." Emily turned to leave. Then Claire spoke again. "Wait." Emily stopped. "Have we met before?" "No." "You just look familiar." Emily forced a smile. "I don't think so." Claire nodded slowly. "Sorry. I must be mistaken." Emily walked back toward her car. Her heartbeat wouldn't slow. Why had Claire looked so confused? Had she recognized Daniel from photos? Had Daniel shown her pictures of his wife? Or was Emily inventing another story that didn't exist? As she opened her car door, someone behind her called out, "You looking for Claire?" It was George, the elderly neighbor. Emily hesitated. "Just asking directions." George chuckled. "She's had a rough few weeks." Emily looked at him carefully. "What happened?" George sighed. "Family problems." "What kind?" He shrugged. "Not really my place." Then he lowered his voice. "But whoever that fellow is..." Emily froze. "He's been helping her more than anyone." Her stomach dropped. "What fellow?" George smiled. "Tall guy." "Dark hair?" "Drives a black SUV." "He seems like a decent man." Emily couldn't breathe. George continued. "I've seen him carrying groceries, fixing her fence, even taking her somewhere in the middle of the night. The hospital, I think." Hospital. Again. Everything circled back to the hospital. Emily thanked him and somehow managed to drive away. By the time she reached home, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely unlock the front door. Helping another woman. Visiting her house. Driving her to the hospital. Lying about it. How many coincidences could one marriage survive? That evening, Daniel came home carrying Emily's favorite bakery box. "I remembered," he smiled. "Your lemon tarts." Normally, she would have hugged him. Today, she only stared. He noticed. "You sure you're okay?" Emily looked directly into his eyes. She wanted him to confess. Anything. Everything. Instead, he asked softly, "Did something happen today?" The question caught her off guard. Why would he ask that? Did he know she'd gone to Maple Street? Had someone seen her? Before she could answer, Daniel's phone rang again. The same unknown number. This time, he looked at the screen, and instead of rejecting the call, he turned pale. "I have to take this." He walked outside. Emily quietly stepped toward the living room window. She couldn't hear every word, only fragments. "No. Don't tell her. I'm on my way." Daniel ended the call, grabbed his keys without coming back inside, and rushed toward the front door. "Daniel!" Emily shouted. He stopped. For one brief second, it looked as though he wanted to explain everything. Instead, he whispered only 4 words. "I'm sorry, Em." Then he drove away. Without realizing it, Daniel had left his laptop open on the kitchen table. And as the screen lit up, a new email arrived. The sender's name made Emily's blood run cold. St. Anne's Children's Hospital. Emily stared at the laptop. The notification disappeared almost as quickly as it had appeared. For a second, she considered closing the screen, walking away, pretending she had never seen it. Instead, her hand moved on its own. She clicked. The email opened. Subject: Patient update. Her heart pounded so loudly she barely heard the rain tapping against the windows. She expected photographs, love letters, hotel receipts, anything that would finally explain the lies. Instead, she found a single sentence. "Mr. Carter, the donor compatibility results have been confirmed. Please arrive as soon as possible." Donor? Emily frowned. There had to be another page. She scrolled. Attached were hospital documents, blood work, medical consent forms, a surgery schedule, and one name. Lily Dawson. Age: 8. Emily searched her memory. She had never heard that name before. Then she noticed another line. Emergency bone marrow transplant. She stopped breathing. What did Daniel have to do with an 8-year-old girl? The front door slammed. He had already driven away. Emily looked at the hospital address. Without thinking, she grabbed her coat and rushed outside. The drive felt endless. Every red light became unbearable. Every slow driver felt like an enemy. By the time she reached St. Anne's Children's Hospital, Daniel's SUV was already parked outside. She hurried through the entrance. The pediatric wing was quiet, too quiet. Parents slept in uncomfortable chairs. Nurses whispered. Machines beeped softly behind closed doors. Emily spotted Daniel at the end of the hallway. He wasn't alone. Claire stood beside him. She was crying. Daniel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Emily felt anger explode inside her. So this is it. Both of them turned. Daniel's face went completely white. "Emily, you lied to me." Claire immediately stepped back. "I should go." "No," Emily interrupted. "You should stay. If you've been part of this from the beginning, you deserve to explain it." Several people looked toward them. Daniel lowered his voice. "This isn't the place." Then where was the right place? Our kitchen? Our bedroom? Your Uber history? His shoulders dropped. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, Claire whispered, "I'm his sister." Emily blinked. What? Daniel closed his eyes. I was trying to tell you. When? I don't know. There was never a good moment. Emily laughed bitterly. You don't have a sister. I do. Half-sister. My father had another family before he met my mother. Emily stared at him. No. My father made me promise. He begged me not to destroy either family. He supported Claire financially for years. When he died, Daniel swallowed hard, I became the only one who knew. Emily felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. Everything she believed shifted again. Every lie suddenly had a different shape. But it still didn't explain Lily. Daniel looked toward one of the hospital rooms. Lily is Claire's daughter. Emily followed his gaze. Inside the room, a tiny girl slept beneath white blankets. Her skin looked almost transparent. Claire quietly wiped away another tear. The doctors couldn't find a donor, Daniel continued. So I volunteered. Emily whispered, You were the match? He nodded. The only one. Silence filled the hallway. Every accusation Emily had built over the last 2 days collapsed at once. Yet one question remained. Then why didn't you tell me? Daniel looked down. Because I was ashamed. Ashamed of what? My father, my family, my lies. I spent my whole life pretending they didn't exist. When Lily got sick, I couldn't ignore them anymore. I thought I could fix everything before you ever had to know. Emily felt tears forming. You let me believe you were cheating. I know. I thought that would hurt less than telling you who my father really was. Claire shook her head. I told him she deserved the truth. Daniel smiled sadly. I should have listened. Before Emily could answer, a doctor hurried into the hallway. Mr. Carter? Daniel stood immediately. We're ready. Claire grabbed his hand. Thank you. Daniel smiled gently. Take care of her until I wake up. He turned toward Emily. I don't expect forgiveness. His voice cracked. I didn't want my father's mistakes to become ours. Emily stepped forward. For the first time since discovering the Uber ride, she took his hand. You idiot. A tiny smile appeared. I know. You should have trusted me. I know. You don't get to make decisions for both of us. I know. She wrapped her arms around him. I'm still angry. I know. But I'm here. He hugged her tightly before the nurses wheeled him away. The surgery lasted nearly 8 hours. Claire and Emily spent the entire day sitting together. At first, the silence felt awkward. Then Claire began talking about growing up with a father who visited only a few weekends each year, about pretending she didn't mind,
About Lily's diagnosis. About Daniel secretly paying medical bills long before anyone asked him to. Emily listened. Each story erased another piece of the man she thought she had discovered. Not because he had been innocent, but because his secrets had never been about betrayal. It had been about shame. Late that evening, the surgeon finally appeared. The 3 words everyone had been waiting for came softly. It went well. Claire burst into tears. Emily closed her eyes in relief. Hours later, Daniel regained consciousness. His first question wasn't about himself. How's Lily? Claire smiled through tears. She's stable. He nodded weakly. Good. Then he looked at Emily. I'm sorry. She squeezed his hand. No more secrets. Never again. 6 months later, life looked different. Lily's transplant had been successful. Her hair had started growing back. She laughed loudly enough to fill every room she entered. Claire no longer carried the weight of surviving alone. And Emily still used the shared Uber account. Not because she had forgotten what happened, but because trust isn't built by removing every opportunity for doubt. It's built by choosing honesty when doubt appears. Daniel eventually admitted something else. The night you saw that ride, Emily looked at him. I almost told you everything. What stopped you? I kept thinking, if I waited one more day, I could protect everyone. Emily smiled sadly. And instead, I almost lost the person I was trying hardest to protect. He nodded. Yeah. Months later, Emily opened the Uber app to order dinner. A new ride appeared in the history. Pickup, St. Anne's Children's Hospital. Destination, home. She smiled instead of panicking. A photograph arrived seconds later. Daniel, Claire, Lily, and Oliver stood outside the hospital entrance. Lily held a handmade sign. Across the front, written in uneven, colorful letters, were the words, "Thank you for sharing him with us." Emily looked at the picture for a long time. Then she realized something she would never forget. Secrets rarely destroy relationships because they're shocking. They destroy them because silence allows fear to invent stories far worse than the truth. Sometimes the scariest journey isn't the one shown on a map. It's the one your imagination takes before you ask the first honest question. And sometimes the ride that looks like the beginning of the end is actually the road that brings a family together for the very first time. If this story made you question what you would have done in Emily's place, share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have confronted Daniel immediately? Or would you have followed the same path she did before learning the truth?